What's up, guys? This is Brave, and I'm back with another review of Real Housewives of Atlanta. This is season 13, episode 4, and the episode is titled From One Surprise to Another. So let's go ahead and break this episode down. So we start this episode off with Cynthia, her sister Mal, and Kenya having a quick little yoga session. I don't know why we keep having these reality shows, having these ladies work out, doing this type of yoga, goat yoga. Like, I'm done seeing people do yoga. But what I will say, what came out of this this situation was some clarity for Cynthia, because on the last episode, she was really talking in circles. She was going back on what she was saying, especially about her wedding and it being on a specific date, because as we all know, she wants her wedding to be on 10/10/20. And Mike, who is her husband now, he was more so focused on them getting married on that date. Didn't matter where they were getting married, if they got married at the courthouse, it didn't matter to him. He just wanted to be married to Cynthia. But Cynthia has it in her mind that she deserves this big wedding, so it has to be at this venue and it has to be huge, because she wants everyone to see. And on this episode, her and Kenya have this conversation about this, and Kenya was right. It's not many times where I have ever said that Kenya was right, but she was definitely right in telling Cynthia, hey, this man really loves you and he just wants to be married to you. What are you not understanding? I did think it was interesting that they broke the fourth wall, especially when Kenya was like, you want to get married on, like, for the show. You want to make sure that it's big and it's seen for the show. And I think that Cynthia definitely caught offense to that, because in her mind, she feels like, no, I just want my wedding to be perfect. But we all know deep down, who wants a small wedding when you can have this extravagant, expensive wedding that Bravo is going to show? You know what I mean? Even when it comes to like her choosing the day 10/10/20, yes, it's a great date, but I wouldn't be surprised if she made sure that that was going to be a time when the show was filming, to make sure that it makes the final cut for the show. Because if they were on a hiatus during 10/10/20, I would not be surprised if that was not the date that Cynthia chose. Another thing that I really liked about this scene was that you can tell that Mal actually likes Mike, because if we all recall, when Peter was Cynthia's husband, Mal always had something to say that was against Peter. She didn't care for Peter. But when it comes to Mike, she clearly saw things Mike's way, and she was just trying to get some clarity for Cynthia, and for her to understand that, like, hey, y'all just need to get married. At the end of the day, the whole point is for you guys to be married, not all the glitz, the glamour, I need something that's extravagant. It was really cool to see, because sometimes that is an awkward relationship between sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws, and however that works. But yeah, it was just cool to see. So we next have a scene with Candy and not Cynthia, Kenya. They actually met up and had lunch together, and Kenya is out here being Miss Run Tell That, because she definitely told Candy about the situation that she had with Cynthia, about them kind of going back and forth about Cynthia's wedding. And Candy said something that made a lot of sense as well. She's like, well, the last time she got married in brokenness. And baby, we know that they were hella broke, her and Peter, when they got married. I mean, can't lie, she looked beautiful. But that's pretty much where it stops, because I feel like we heard them talk about all types of debt had come out. Like, Peter kept losing businesses. Like, that marriage was a hot mess. But now that she's with Mike, he has some money, she has some money. She wants to do it up big. And I mean, I get it. Who wouldn't want to do it up big when you can? But it's like, girl, we are going through a pandemic. I need you to relax a little bit. So in this conversation, Kandi and Kenya also talk about how Kenya feels bad that she almost ruined Cynthia's surprise engagement, so now she wants to throw her a surprise engagement party. I think this is a very, like, girl, it's a little too late because Cynthia has been engaged for I don't know how long. Like, I would rather you say, oh, I just want to throw like a little bachelorette type party or something rather than an engagement party. Like, that's so random. So now she's asking Kandi to invite everybody because we all know nobody really likes Kenya like that. Marlo don't mess with Kenya like that. Portia don't mess with Kenya like that. And we all know Tanya does not mess with Kenya like that. So who are you going to invite to a party for Cynthia? The new girls? Like, you're going to invite who? LaToya? Because LaToya is your friend. LaToya is not Cynthia's friend like that. So this is why she has to use Kandi to invite the girls who are already on the show, because how else would they get there? Because if Kenya sends out that invite, baby, them girls are not showing up, regardless if it's for Cynthia or not. And another thing that was kind of funny to me was the fact that Kenya brought up how, you know, she invited LaToya over her house and how she's like very flirty with her. And I'm like, I don't know what this situation is with LaToya and Kenya, but it is so weird and I don't like it. Just because LaToya is like Kenya on steroids, and Kenya and LaToya, it low-key gives me like lesbian vibes, but like sister vibes. So I'm like, that's a bit incestuous. I'm not a fan of this relationship. Oh, and I almost forgot that Kenya happened to talk about Portia to Kandi, and I don't even want to talk about this that much because it really pisses me off. That Kenya felt like maybe Portia was putting herself in situations to be arrested, and how Kenya feels like Portia is not being safe when she's out protesting. And I'm like, well, what are you doing for the cause? Because I don't like the fact that, I understand you don't like Portia, and that's fine, you don't have to, but don't try to downplay what she's doing to try to make things better for every black person. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't like this thing that Kenya is trying to do with Portia. Y'all can fight about anything else, but like her protesting, find you some business. Find you another reason to be mad at Portia. Alright, so this next scene was a lot, which was the scene of Drew and her husband. We first start the scene off with her husband and herself. They're in the kitchen with her mom, you know, trying to figure out who's going to be watching the kids while they have their therapy session. And her mom is just basically telling them to be like open with the therapist and all this stuff. And I know that a lot of people have a problem with Drew's mom being in their relationship, but at the same time, I don't know whose mom will witness their daughters being disrespected, blatantly disrespected in their face by their husbands. Like, there's no way that my husband could disrespect me in front of my mother and my mother's not going to feel some type of way, and my mother's not going to be like, excuse me, like, who do you think you're talking to? Because at the end of the day, I absolutely understand that this is Drew and Ralph's marriage, but at the same time, don't depend on her mother to help y'all out and then not expect for her to see how you treat her and not have an opinion. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever to me. Like, you're depending on her mom to help you out with your children because, like, again, like how he left to go to Tampa. Yeah, Drew was there, but Drew has a hurt foot. So who's helping out with these kids? Oh, that responsibility fell on her mom. So not only did him leaving Drew affect the kids, it affected Drew. It also now affects her mom. So you kind of involved her in your relationship at this point. But let me go ahead and go to this this counseling session. So I will say that this this therapist, She seems to really have, a lot of knowledge. And when she asked them, what are 3 things that you would like to work on within this relationship, Drew said a few things that I just kind of was like, excuse me? So, of course, she wants transparency. And in her mind, transparency is letting her know where he's going. And I'm like, girl, because there's another say further down the line on this episode that I want to get into. I'm like, he doesn't even want you involved in the house decisions. He doesn't want you to know where he is. I'm sorry, but I think that Ralph is living a secret life. There is something else that is going on with that man that he is not telling Drew about. I don't know if he have another family or what, but I mean, wouldn't want to say that or wish that on anybody, but there's just something about the way Ralph moves that I just do not trust that man. So she also mentioned that she wants him to, treat her son equally that was from a previous relationship as he does with the 2 kids that they have together. And I can honestly say those are the type of situations that really piss me off, because I just don't care for men who treat children from different relationships differently than their own, just because these kids are technically, biologically yours. That other child needs you just as much, because at the end of the day, you took a vow that you would be the man of the house for this household. That child is in this household. Drew and her son were a package deal when you met her. So at the end of the day, you should always treat all these kids equally, because please know it is going to affect her son growing up, especially consider he's the oldest. He's going to take notice that, like, oh, well, because those are Ralph's kids, they get to do this and they get to do that, and he treats me differently. Like, don't give that little boy a complex just because Ralph has whatever going on in his life. Like, treat that boy the same and give him love like you would give the rest of your kids. I don't know if she was saying that he doesn't need tough love just for that one child, or all of their kids don't need tough love. But I will say that I understand that there's a time, for me, there's a time and a place for tough love, because at the end of the day, this world is tough. Everybody's not nice. But I do think that there are times when you need to be open as a parent, and you need to be endearing as a parent, and you need to be very caring and nurturing. And then we further go down into Ralph's life, and I'm like, well, maybe he didn't receive that, or maybe he didn't want to receive that. So when the therapist asked him, oh, well, what do you need? He gave the response of like a teenager. Oh, I need respect and sex. Now, the whole sex thing, listen, y'all got all those kids. I don't know where you're going to find the time. But what I will say is when he said, the counselor said, well, what do you, not counselor, I keep calling her a counselor because it was a counseling session. The therapist, she asked him, what do you mean by respect? And he says, well, I don't want to feel emasculated the way Drew's mom emasculated her dad. I'm sorry, were you in the household with Drew? Were you there when Drew was a child? Were you there when Drew was a teenager? Were you living in their house at that time? You were not. How do you know exactly how Drew's mother treated her husband? You're only going by the stories that Drew may have told you. And in that same vein, sometimes the way we see things when we are children and as teenagers is not how things really played out. Our brains only expand so far when we are at that age that we don't really see the full picture. Like, we don't see if mom and dad have had an argument and we come in on the tail end, but we didn't know that they had a whole conversation prior to this, and we don't know if they had a whole text conversation prior to this, and then there's an explosion. You know what I'm saying? So not only are you're basing this off of maybe what Drew has said in the past about her family, but also you have only been with her for 6 years. So even within those 6 years, how do you figure that this woman is emasculating her husband? You're not with her mom all the time. Like, just something about that really rubbed me the wrong way. So then we later go into his family. Oh, also one thing I want to add is that you can tell that pissed Drew off, that he said that her mom was emasculating her dad. Like, you can tell that really pissed her off. But we went into what is this man named Ralph's background, and we learned that his dad walked out on his mom when he was young. Okay, his dad walked out. His mom did the best that she could, clearly, as probably a single parent. It didn't sound like he had a stepdad or anything like that. So this woman was a single mother doing the best that she could, and she probably had a few kids. And at a certain point, he had to, kind of help with the household or whatever. So I'm going to assume maybe around like 16 or 17, he may have gotten like a part-time job or something, and he helped out, here and there. So at a certain point, he got, pissed off, and he basically told his mom that he was leaving. He was going to go stay with his dad, and that since she wants him to be, if she doesn't want to treat him like the man of the house, then, he's going to leave. Here's one thing that stood out to me about this whole situation. Your mom probably busted her ass to try to take care of you and your siblings. And I get it. It is very unfair that as the oldest, you had to step up and you had to, help your mom out when she needed it. But at the same time, the issue that I have is that he continues to mention that whole man of the house thing, but at the same time, he was still a teenager. So I don't know if he had the expectation that he probably didn't want to have any more rules in the household. Who knows what that was? But I feel like there came a point where he felt like, well, I'm doing all this, I'm helping you out financially, I can probably do whatever the hell I want. And his mom was like, no, regardless of you helping me out, there are still rules in this household. So therefore he said, no, I'm going to go live with my dad. And I feel like that right there is the start of Ralph not only not respecting women, but feeling like, well, if I'm helping you out, if I'm supposed to be the man of this house, I run things, and that's just how it goes. So he then goes and lives with his dad. Now, I'm like, I don't know where you found this man at, and I don't know what he has told you about your mother, because I feel like a lot of times in those situations when you have parents who separated when you were young and then your dad walked out on y'all, when you become like a teenager or you get grown, he tells his version of the story, and sometimes his story be a lie as well. Sometimes they will say, oh, well, I tried, and your mother is like, no, that person did not. So we have he moved in with his dad. His dad still got evicted, okay? So his dad clearly wasn't bringing in no money. Then his mom got evicted or whatever, and his mom did end up apologizing and saying that she was sorry, for everything. But at that point, I could tell that was not good enough for Ralph. Ralph is the type of man that wants you to grovel at his goddamn feet, so that way he knows that, oh, I'm the man, I'm the authority. So we then get into, Drew crying a little bit about how, she's been to counseling to try to be like a better woman to help him with his mommy issues. And the therapist even points out how, Ralph leaves because that's the same thing that he did when he was younger. And I'm like, yeah, he left because of mommy issues, but also I just feel like that is a personality trait that Ralph has, that if it's my way or the highway, we're going to do it my way, and there's no questioning it, there's no other anything, and a woman's opinion is not important to him. Because I want to get on that in a little bit later. To me, the one thing that really pissed me off about this counseling session, though, was when the therapist had to tell him to console his wife. His first reaction was to just sit there. He was not going to console Drew while she was crying. He was just going to sit there with a smirk on his face. He don't give a damn about that girl, honestly. He just wants somebody that he can control and rule over. And that is my opinion on that. So let's go ahead to this next scene. So Portia's sister, Lauren, she wants to throw Portia a little party to celebrate how much, Portia is doing with the movement. And she wants to invite the ladies to come to like a little backyard get together. She calls Cynthia. Cynthia wants to invite Kenya. And Lauren is kind of iffy about it. She's like, no, not really. But I guess, yeah, you can bring her. She calls Candy. She invites Candy and Marlo and even Latoya, who's one of the new girls. And that's pretty much that. It was a very quick scene. Oh, but Kenya and, what is her name? Kenya and Cynthia, they end up having a conversation. And, Cynthia is just letting Kenya know that they were invited. Well, Cynthia was invited, and she's going to bring Kenya as a +1. And first of all, Kenya was like, well, maybe I should have parties and be celebrated for the things that I do. And I'm like, well, girl, what do you do? Anyways, she didn't want to go to this party to begin with. So later on in this episode, she did a couple of things that didn't make sense to me, because she honestly doesn't really support Portia. She doesn't. So we next get a scene of Drew and Ralph. They're getting ready to pack up and leave for a couple of days because his dad actually passed away, which is very sad and unfortunate. His dad ended up passing away, and she said that they are basically putting their relationship problems on the back burner so that she can help console Ralph. And I'm like, okay, but how long will your relationship problems be on the back burner? Because honestly, regardless of his dad's passing, Ralph is a lot. Like, there are so many parts of him that I feel like he needs to work on, or he needs to find a different woman to be with. So we will see when they get back on track to trying to fix their relationship. Actually, I think I realized that I thought that they talked about the house in this episode, but maybe it was the last episode. But I just want to bring up the fact that he literally does not want her involved in anything. Like, the fact that he really did not want her involved in like the home buying process, that bothered me, because at the end of the day, is it both of your names going on this house, or is he going to try to be sneaky and only put his name on the house? Drew better watch it, because I'm telling y'all, I don't trust Ralph. So next we see Portia. She's getting picked up by Tanya, and I mean, Portia looks great, and I love Tanya. Like, she just has such a bubbly personality. They're going to head to lunch, and they're going to hang out with Marlo. And I will say that I do like this group of ladies, just because I feel like Portia, Tanya, and Marlo, they do seem to get along well. They're all fashionable. I can see them as a cute friend group. when Tanya went to go put in the order at the restaurant, you already know that Marlo asked about Dennis, because remember, she always said that Dennis was her friend because she liked Dennis. And Portia's like, no, we're just co-parenting. We are not, we're not together. We're separated. I don't think that's where we, need to be. So by the time Tanya comes back, she's telling her about how Dennis is over here giving her Chanel bags every day. Talking about, so yeah, you can't, what was it? You can't wear this in jail or something like that. And I'm like, Chanel bags? Okay, Dennis. But I thought it was funny that Marlo was like, yeah, I don't want you to start being all materialistic. And I'm like, girl, all you know is labels. What are you talking about? So we then get a scene of Cynthia calling Kenya, basically to let her know that Lauren is like, yeah, so could you not bring Kenya, because I just don't want things to go left at this party, and that's not the type of energy that I'm trying to bring. Kenya is pissed off when she finds this information out, and I'm like, you didn't want to go in the first place. Why are you getting upset? Nothing should upset you this much that you're like yelling at like the producers or the crew that's there, saying, did you guys know about this? Like, girl, it was not that serious. So now she's mad at Portia for this, which I'm like, Portia doesn't even know this party is happening. Why are you mad at her? And then she's like, well, I was gonna give this doll to Pilar, but I guess you can take it, Cynthia. And it's a Rosa Parks doll. At the end of the day, I feel like she's being shady about the doll, because there's no other time when you would give PJ a Rosa Parks doll. It's only because Portia is out here protesting. We already know. So she then calls Candy to tell her that she's not coming to the party, and for Candy to invite the ladies to the engagement party that she wants to throw Cynthia. So after this, Candy's like, okay, yeah, okay. And she's like, oh, and as far as like Portia goes, she just like starts to rant a little bit about how, this is self-serving and all this stuff. And even Candy is like, yeah, maybe you should sit this one out, because clearly you don't support Portia. Like, you don't like this girl. It's okay. You don't have to, and you don't have to come to her party. So we have everyone arriving to this party for Portia. I will say that it looked really, really nice. It was kind of weird to see like all those photos hanging up, and I'm like, okay, y'all, I guess it's decor, but it was a bit weird, whatever. But we do get a scene of Cynthia, Candy, Latoya, and Fallon. And I must say, Fallon is gorgeous. All the women are really pretty. Latoya is pretty too, but Latoya's attitude and her opinions are what I don't like about her. So they're having a conversation, and Latoya is like, talking to Fallon, and basically she's like, yeah, well, you look like the type to date older men, because as we know, Fallon's husband is older. I think she said he's like 56 or something, and she's like 33, so he has like 20 years on her. And honestly, Latoya, the way she just kind of, shoots off at the mouth, I'm like, someone is going to like tell her about herself, and hopefully it's someone in this season, because girl, I used to think that like Eva had a mouth that would just, shoot things off, but at least Eva wouldn't like say it to people's face. Like Latoya is like, whoo, she's a lot. And like Candy said, Latoya is Kenya on steroids. Like she's a lot, and she's honestly rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. Oh, within that scene though, I thought it was hilarious when Candy's like, "Oh, well, I feel so old with these young girls. If I feel old, then Cynthia has to feel ancient." And I'm like, yeah, you're right, because they're like, what? They were all, what, 31, 32. I think Portia is still in her 30s. I'm pretty sure Tanya, she might still be in like her 30s. I think Marlo's probably in her 40s. Candy's in her 40s. And then Kenya and Cynthia are what, in their 50s, I believe? Or Kenya's not 50, she's close to it. I think it is about that time for this older generation to move on. Like, I think it's time for Portia to kind of be like the queen of the castle here, because she's younger, she's fun, and it brings just like a brighter energy versus the older castmates. So Portia arrives, and she's so shocked that this is even happening. She even cries, and everyone's cheering her on and thanking her, for her really rocking with the protest and being a person that's standing up for what is just and what is right. And she ends up making a speech at the end of the night. And I was like, wow, look at all this growth that Portia has done. It's actually quite beautiful to see, because at first when we met Portia, we thought she was just some like ditzy girl. But I said, look at that. She has educated herself on a few things. It's amazing. And that pretty much wrapped up this episode. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode, and what do you think is going to happen next week. Thanks for watching this video. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, guys. Bye.